So we're hitting 7 o'clock. So I thought we'd just start. I'll introduce our tech team who are behind the camera. So you've already heard Guillaume. Maybe Guillaume, you'd come over and give a wave.
It's Grammy from Trieste. Grammy from Trieste.
Okay. Grammy, is that right? I'm trusting Guillaume's accent. So this is Guillaume. So Guillaume lives upstairs along with Nyonadaya. Maybe Nyonadaya, you come say hello as well. So the three of us all live together here at the London Buddhist Centre in a community upstairs, which is why we can sort of be sort of close like this. So you may have seen Nyonadaya teaching a Qigong class in this room earlier today. Talking about, I only saw a bit of it, but talking about lungs and moving his arms around, probably causing you lots of pain. So I'm very pleased to have friends behind the camera here. And I'm aware of you all in quite a different, normally we'd be talking to people who are all sat around here in the same shrine room, we'd be sharing the same space, there'd be a sense of a particular atmosphere, particularly after we've meditated together. And sort of in lieu of that, we've got all of us sat sort of separately in separate rooms, but sort of gathering together around the same event, if you like, the same thing that sort of brought us together to spend this next hour thinking about practicing meditation and reflecting on what that can do and what that means in our lives. So we will, how we'll structure it is I'm going to speak for a little bit, share a few reflections. Then we'll meditate, and I'll guide us through a meditation. So you don't need to have meditated before. I'm thinking particularly of my parents who actually have meditated a little bit, but I'll lead you all through from that. And then we'll take some questions. So already people have been writing in the chat box. So it would be really good, even while I'm talking in the first section, just start writing any questions that come up out of that, things you'd like to me to say a bit more about, perhaps, or perhaps your own questions about meditation or about how to practice or how to practice sort of living, if you like, in this moment in time. So do type them into the chat box from early on, and so then when we finish meditating, I can just start to hear some of those and respond, and we can have a bit of back and forth. And then at the very end, we'll meditate just a little bit more. So. What I'd like to talk about primarily is I want to talk about letting go tonight. So I'll say a bit more. So, in a way, you could sort of frame the whole practice of meditation and the whole Buddhist path as a deeper and deeper letting go. There are many other ways, even possibly quite contradictory ways that you could frame the Buddhist path than that, but that's one that does work. So letting go, it's a sort of phrase, it's almost a cliche, isn't it, as well? We can hear it in lots of different settings, and I'm struck by it can mean quite different things. In one, we can think about letting go as something that's quite painful. Might be in relation to a breakup or a bereavement, or just a really deep sense of sort of loss. It could be something that takes, in a way, that could be quite could take quite a lot of courage to really do. I think sort of in a bereavement or something, this sense of like not being able to let go, and then the act of letting go is where things sort of move on, and it takes a certain amount of strength and courage to do that. So letting go is something that can take courage. But it's also associated, isn't it, with a sense of relief. It's like that. Sort of sense of just letting go, like the end of a long day, almost just sort of like kick back and relax kind of thing. So it's got that connotation as well, both as something that takes courage and something that is a real relief to do, a weight off our shoulders. So in a way, I think that that sort of dual meaning is sort of there through our practice of meditation and through our practice of Buddhism, is doing practices and living in a way that enables us, that takes courage, but enables us to experience the fruits of a great sort of relief and bigger perspective that comes from doing so. So this is something that that's been in my mind quite a lot recently. So some of you will know, and some of you may have even been there. But I was ordained in this room, actually, on another YouTube live stream about 3 weeks ago, just over 3 weeks ago, I think. And so where I was given the name Sthiramanas, I was given this white caser, which symbolises my commitment to going for refuge to the three jewels. So putting the sort of the onus of my life behind moving towards the ideals of Buddhism. In a way, there's an aspect of letting go that's sort of really bound up in that, particularly with the name. That's a sort of obvious one. So I didn't used to be called Sthiramanas, and I had another name. And now I'm not called that other name. I'm called Sthiramanas. So there's this moment of letting go of a whole life, in a way, a whole identity, and an arising of something else that comes in through the gaps to sort of fill the place that was there before. So there's a sort of very sort of voluntary aspect of like I definitely wanted to do that. That's something I chose to do. I asked for, I trained for, and got to the point where I could do that. I'm very pleased to have done that. But there's a really strong aspect of letting go sort of in there. But there was also quite a strong aspect of a sort of a less voluntary letting go that sort of came with it. I'll let you sort of draw your own links to this, because I think for me it relates certainly to the situation that we're all finding ourselves in now. I'm sort of determined not to name it and talk about it too specifically, but because we're probably all sick to death of that. But we're all experiencing something of a sort of a forced letting go of something. Something's been taken out of our hands. And so for me, that really sort of played into the ordination as well. So there's been a number of stages of that. So I was invited to go on a 4-month course, 4-month retreat in the Spanish mountains, during the course of which I would be ordained. And I was invited to do that last year, but because of a few of us who work here together at the London Buddhist Centre being invited at the same time, I wasn't able to do that. And so, it wasn't the situation I wanted to be in, but that ended up waiting behind a year. So that was one step of sort of having to let go of a particular idea of how it was all going to happen. Bearing in mind that for me, this is something that, it was the kind of focus of moving towards this ordination was like the thing that I was sort of at the centre of my life, or that I was building up to. So that might be probably something quite different for many of you, but that sort of central thing that you're kind of building your life around, kind of thing. And then I was due to go this year, and then of course, what happened, and everything was cancelled, and I couldn't. And so that was pretty painful, having to let go of the whole idea of when I was going to be ordained, where I was going to be ordained, what it was going to be like. Just like with the best moments where you really let go, something else sort of came in to fill the gap. And Maitreya Bandhu and Parama Bandhu, who are the two very fine men who ordained me, were very creative and came up with a solution where I could be ordained here. So sort of something came in to fill the gaps. But even then, there was back and forth, and the lockdown rules sort of changed. I seem to be failing completely at talking about this whole situation, but you know what I'm talking about. The lockdown rules all changed, and someone in our community got ill, so we had to enter a 14-day isolation thing, and the dates kept shifting, and things kept changing, and it was just completely unclear as to what was going to happen. So I was sort of building up to this moment. It feels like probably the most important thing, or the most significant thing for me that I'm going to do with my life, and the dates just kept shifting, and whether it was even going to be possible kept changing. And there was one moment, I remember one evening where I think it was just after the lockdown, the main lockdown had sort of come in. I just had this sense of just like, we've had this whole idea, I've got really excited about it, people have been told about it, of being ordained here. But I just don't actually know if it's going to be possible. And it was that was just what the situation was. It was just sort of forced into my lap. And I remember this evening we were doing a ritual together in our community that I live in with Guillaume and Young Dai. And I just had this sense of just like, I just don't know if I can rely on this thing happening. I just don't even know if I can. I think I just need to let go of the whole idea of the ordination entirely, not only when it was going to happen, where it was going to happen, what it was going to be like, but like the whole package. I just got to put it down. And that was sort of forced on me. Like, I don't think I'd have got to that point myself. I don't think I'd have thought about it in that sort of esoteric a way, maybe, but like just having to let go of the whole idea of the thing. And my experience of that was one of, I was just suddenly really happy. I was just suddenly really relieved and felt really light. And like the thing that I'd been sort of like really trying to make my life about, for good reasons as well. But so the thing that I was really kind of holding at the center of who I was, I just had to drop it. And the experience was one of like, just like, I still wanted to laugh. I felt really, really well. And as happened, things all worked out really beautifully, and I'm sitting here now. But I think there's something in that. There's this, and I think it actually takes us to something really essential in what the Buddhist path is trying to lead us towards. So it's sort of essential Buddhism, the essential message of the Buddha, that a lot of our life is marked. In fact, from a certain perspective, all of our life is marked by an experience of suffering. There's just pain and loss and being close to those things we don't want to be close to, and being separated from those things that we do, people, places, objects, achievements. It just never quite works, and that is inherently painful. And even just that sense even when things are going quite well, that sort of last thing at night, opening the fridge sensation, you're like, I know there's nothing in there, but I can't this day just can't quite be done. It's just not quite worked. It's not quite given me everything I wanted. And that sort of existential sense of it's just that life just can't and won't work in the way that we want it to. And so our life is marked, it's tainted by this experience of dukkha, as the Buddha called it, or sort of unsatisfactoriness or suffering. And the Buddha tells us that the reason for that, the root of suffering, is in our tendency to grasp onto life, to try and fix a world that is constantly moving and unpredictable into something that will suit us, into something that works for us, into something that we can predict, into something that we can understand, and to sort of create a version of ourselves that is sort of how we want to be and is stable, and even that we know, even a self that we understand. And the only way to really free ourselves of this state of suffering that we're in is to find a way to let go of that innate tendency to sort of grasp and to sort of shape yourself and your world out of something that just doesn't want to be shaped. So in a minute we'll explore that in meditation. We'll explore on a number of different levels how we can let go more and more deeply. And there's just one thing that I'll say before that, and that's that this needs to happen in a certain context. So letting go of something has, as I sort of mentioned a minute ago, this connotation of loss potentially. And the wrong way to hold this approach, if you like, would be to see it as sort of letting go of everything of value and letting go into some sort of void of meaninglessness or purposelessness or even despair or something like that. And that's definitely not what the Buddha's communicating, because what happens when we really do let go, when we really do sort of get over ourselves, if you like, we let go of our tendency to sort of shape ourselves in our world. What sort of rushes in, if you like, when we really manage to do that, is something that is represented here in this shrine of the Buddha. It's the qualities of the Buddha, these qualities of sort of boundless energy and care for other people and compassion and and a really a sort of an acute seeing of how things really are. There's qualities, there's sort of brightness and beauty that can come in to fill that space. So it's not a void, which is why it's important we're doing it here. We're not doing it in front of a sort of a white wall, and we're not even necessarily doing it. We're not even necessarily doing it alone. Even all of us in our separate rooms meditating together, as we'll do in a minute, we're all doing it together, and we sort of come together, and we sort of in doing so we can just have that in mind, that we're sort of a mutual support in doing that, and the fact that we're doing it here in this room with flowers and candles and a golden Buddha expressing the ideals that might come into that space that happens when we let go, is the support, is the context in which we're letting go into. So that's important to hold in mind. And if you feel like it's all falling into some sort of black pit, then you could just sort of step back, because you've got the wrong end of the stick, and it's not going to help. So let's get yourself set up to meditate, and I'll ask Ian to turn off the lights and lead us through it. So yes, I'd suggest you find a way to sit that is both comfortable and upright. So ideally in an upright chair of some sort, with your feet firmly on the ground. Probably not leaning back into the chair either, maybe sitting a bit forward so that you can sit upright. And closing your eyes if you haven't already. And just to begin with, you can just let go of some of your weight. Just let the seat and the floor that are underneath you, just take the weight of your body. And the first thing that we can always let go of is the way that we're holding on in our body. So it's very, very natural and habitual for us to hold tension in our body. And that's just the first thing that we can start to let go of. So we can't let go of something that we're not aware of. So what that's going to mean is that what we're going to be doing is I'll lead us through some of the areas of the body. And you can bring your awareness into the direct sensations and just see if you can let go. So to start with, just bringing your awareness into your face. Notice if you're holding a particular expression on your face. And if you can feel any particular areas of tightness or tension, just really examine that. We're not trying to force it away, we're not trying to sort of knead our brow flatter or manipulate anything. Just bringing our awareness into the experience of the forehead, the cheeks, the jaw. And just allowing them to let go of their own accord at their own speed. And bring your awareness into your throat. Often I feel quite sort of constricted, like there's a sort of constriction somewhere in the throat. Just see if you can just trust that you can just drop that. Allowing that space just to open up. And bringing your awareness into your shoulders. You might notice if you're holding your shoulders up close towards your ears. It's a very natural habit. And in noticing the degree to which you're doing that, just seeing if it's possible just to let go of that and allow your shoulder blades just to melt down your back, down your spine. And a little bit more. And bringing your awareness now down into your belly. Might feel like you're slightly tucking in your belly or slightly clenching. That's fine, that's not your fault, that's not a problem. It isn't very pleasant. And you probably don't need to do that. And drawing your awareness down into the large muscles of your thighs and your buttocks. Not the idea of your thighs, don't need to picture them. Don't even need to say the word. Just seeing if you can tune into the direct experience of what that feels like. Notice if you're bracing at all. And if you can let go And allow your weight just to be supported by the chair and the floor. And bringing your awareness into the area of your chest. Especially this area right at the heart of your chest. And just experience what that's like directly. And could you let go at all? Allowing the area of the chest to open up. Almost as though it might let light in. And now expanding your awareness to fill the whole of your body. Your face, your throat, your shoulders, your belly, your thighs and your buttocks, your base, and your chest, your heart. You can just become aware of the body breathing. This flow of sensation of the breath through the whole of the body. And one particularly good way of letting go more and more deeply is to pay particular attention to the out breath. So really watching the whole journey of the out breath. From the moment that it turns into the out breath, to the moment that it turns back into the in breath. the complete experience of the out-breath. As we let go more and more. If you notice that your mind's gone off, if you've been distracted by a thought, then that's fine, that's very, very natural. But you can just let that thought go, just let it float past as you turn again to the out-breath. Whatever it is that comes into your mind now, we've decided to meditate. So you don't need to think about that now. If it's a worry, or a desire, or a plan, just see if you can really decide just to let it go and experience what that's like. Try and keep stretching out your awareness to include the whole of your body and the whole of your experience. You might ask yourself, where am I not letting go? What could I let go of? You might even get a sense of one whole, almost overall sense of holding on. Just a holding on to your whole being, your whole sense of you. Can you experience that? Face that. And even begin to let go. now we can just drop any effort that you're making in the meditation. And we'll just sit and just absorb the effects of the meditation for a moment longer. Okay, so you could open your eyes and sit comfortably. So it would be good to hear some questions from people. So perhaps if there are any already, maybe Guillaume could read them out. If not, that's fine. Now it's your chance to put something in the chat box, something maybe that came out of what I was saying earlier, or just anything that you would like to hear me talk about. So Nyanadaya will give me a nod when there's questions. I mean, I should have brought some knitting or something, really, shouldn't I? One thing I was thinking during that meditation was sometimes I wonder if it's the same for any of you. I know it is for some friends of mine. Have this experience of just before you're just dropping off to sleep, and you experience that sense of sort of falling or something, and then you sort of catch yourself. But there's this sense just before you catch yourself of this sense of just like almost like complete sort of free fall. It's slightly terrifying because then you sort of jolt awake when you realise you're doing it. But in that moment before it, there's this sense of almost complete sort of rush or sort of freedom or something that comes with that. And sometimes in this sort of reflecting in this way of meditation, I can get a bit of a sense of that kind of that sense of just like dropping away, things just sort of dropping off as they can in that moment before sleep. Nyanadaya's got some questions.
Yes, a couple of questions. So, question from Anna about any comments on letting go of grumpiness.
Letting go of grumpiness, very good.
And then and how do we carry this, I presume, the effects of the meditation into the rest of our lives?
Yeah, good questions. Okay, so grumpiness specifically. So we'll all have different, at different moments in time and slightly different, with a different emphasis for different minds, have different things that we need to let go of. So we'll have different tendencies, but all of us will experience the sort of full range of sort of obstacles of the mind that might lead us to experience life and even behave in ways that we wouldn't want to. So grumpiness is a very good example of that. In a way, like underneath a grumpy mood is a sense that things should be some other way than what they are, isn't there? There's this sense of just like it's just not. I can experience this. I felt a little bit grumpy today, and had this sense of sort of like it should, like, this isn't fair somehow, or it isn't like it's just not how I want things to be or something, and sort of it's pretty understandable, but it does, if it sort of with a little bit of perspective, in the same way that sort of meditating can give us a bit of a step back and a bit of a bigger perspective. It looks a bit sort of silly or something. Not to say that it sort of is, because I'll still go through it again, but looking at one's own experience from a bigger perspective, it sort of seems a bit sort of smaller, and you can see how you're sort of jostling for something that you can't really rightfully sort of expect. Of course, there might be something objective that you're grumpy about that needs to be resolved, and you might have some conversations to have. But there's that general sort of mental state, isn't there, of just feeling a bit sort of resistant, which is a bit uncomfortable and doesn't really work. I'll address the second question briefly about bringing this into daily life. One thing is just to say it's worth leaving a bit of space after meditating, generally just to let it sink in. So not to just jump straight up and get on your phone and get on with day-to-day, just to sort of scale it so it's a bit smoother. And in a way that will help the effect sort of sink in a bit more deeply. And also, I think you can even take the sort of physical experience, the physical memory of what it's like just to let things drop off. The more you practice that in meditation, the more you can sort of notice that in a moment of mindfulness in your day. You might just notice how you're feeling and be able to do some of that in a moment. But also the perspective of the way that you're doing that with. You could also have that as a sort of an actual reflection as well. To sort of think about how am I holding on to the situation and how can I let go of that more according to what your circumstances are.
Okay, good. So we've got quite a few expressions of appreciation. Congratulations on ordination.
Thank you very much.
Haircut from Martin Dallas.
Thank you very much, Martin.
And a lot of questions about letting go, it seems. So different aspects of letting go. So so thank you for sharing your story. Could you say more about giving up your plans around your ordination? Mm-hmm. Was that a conscious choice, or something came more spontaneously? And also, Colleen saying, finding the concept letting go of the sense of self quite weighty. Is there an easier way to start with aspects of experience?
That's a good question. I'll maybe take that.
Okay.
So, in a way, what we've sort of sketched out in this brief session so far is different levels of this sort of this letting go. So to begin with, just letting go of physical tension is something that is sort of pretty universally known as a good thing. Doesn't need to be done just in Buddhist centers. It's known generally as relaxing, and that's a positive thing, and we try and do that in our different ways. Of course, meditation can do that in a particularly targeted way. And that is the basis for all of this in a way. So got to start with an awareness in the body, start to relax the body. That means that the mind can start to relax. When the mind can start to relax, we start to create a bit more, a bit more space, a bit more our reflections on our life, or the way that we look at our life can be more, bit more free ranging, a bit more creative. So it's all sort of linked up, and in a way it's sort of, they're not necessarily sort of separate things. We let go of this and then we let go of that. It's more like if you like a sort of way of being that can sort of deepen and go deeper and deeper, and in particular moments sort of. So for example, the whole letting go of self isn't something that I'm probably consciously thinking about very much of the time, but occasionally in meditation, or in a moment of reflection, or even a moment of crisis, even particularly a moment of crisis where the realities of life and the way that me getting things in the way that I sort of expect and want is sort of is such a direct challenge or something. In those moments, that sort of reflection can help sort of join the whole thing up, if that makes sense. Like the physical sense of letting go can sort of deepen into more of a kind of existential sense of letting go of what the sort of basic delusion in the way that we approach our life. And in a way that follows the sort of Buddhist path of just trying to live in a way where we hold on to things less tightly, where we create conflict less readily, using meditation and cultivating the mind in a way that creates more space, so that in the moments, that's the cherry on the top of the cake, if you like, we can reflect in a way that can help to undermine the whole structure of clinging through these reflections on letting go of self.
There's another question let's go, but there's also Tracy and Ramata asking about effort versus receptivity, and particularly Ramata saying about she can sort of almost fall asleep if she relaxes too much and in letting go. So Tracy saying, could you say a bit more about how to hold attention sufficiently and also holding space?
Yeah, good questions. That's a really important sort of balance to this as well, isn't it? So this is one way of approaching meditation, and the in a moment where we're feeling particularly sleepy, it may not be the most effective as well. Another way would be almost an opposite one, of sense of focusing on. We could in a way focus on the in-breath. And focus on the experience of sort of gathering energy, and the sort of sense, rather than of dropping down, of sort of gathering up and lifting up. So both are sort of present in meditation, and in moments where we can let go quite fully, we might experience a sort of rush of energy and sense of things coming together. So just two sides of the same coin. But yes, if you're dozing off, or you're just sort of floating off in thought, it might be a different perspective that's more helpful for you in that moment in time. But also, particularly sleepiness, I was thinking this earlier, so often a sense of sort of drowsiness, or a sense of not quite attending and not quite staying still with the meditation focus, or whatever the focus is in what you're doing in day-to-day life. So often a kind of drowsiness, I experience certainly, as a sort of tightness. And I was experiencing this earlier today. I was like, I had a really good night's sleep last night. Why am I so tired? Why right now am I feeling like I just want to go to bed? I just want to sort of go sit in my chair and do something that I want to do and forget about the work I have to do. That experience, when I look at it, is one of tightness. It's one of sort of pushing away the things I have to do, pushing away the reality of the situation that I found myself in on that day, where I had things to do. And there was a sort of tightness, there was a sort of gripping onto how I wanted things to be. And if to the extent that I could see that, it could loosen up a little bit, and then I realized I had more energy than I realized as well. So in a way, a dual answer. One is that sometimes it might be better to focus on gathering energy in the in-breath. And the other is that sometimes it'd be interesting to look underneath what's making us drift off, what's making us get distracted. I mean, if there's something underneath there, a certain kind of holding, that if we let go of that might help us to stay focused and gather energy.
Okay, so there's another question from Anastasia, again on the theme of letting go, which you talked about, and particularly how you found letting go in this current context of a more random, open sort of time structure, to previously maybe a time where you had more routine in your life. So.
Okay, so how the difference between letting go now, perhaps maybe for some people, actually I've sort of had a bit of a difference. So I had a period of several weeks where I wasn't working, and where I was sort of, the focus was this ordination and some space around that. So I had a much more sort of loose time, and then I've just started working again and sort of gone from 0 to 60 quite fast. So in a way, it's quite different, isn't it? Like when you're, I guess, one reflection on each. So in the more open space of time, it's very possible for things just to get a bit sort of baggy, don't they? You're not actually, I could experience like, oh, I'll probably read War and Peace, or I'll probably do this and this and this, and then not quite getting around to doing any of them. Not quite sort of engaging in any particular way. And again, underneath that, in some way, was a sort of bit of a pushing against my experience, or a bit of a sort of hiding away or something like that. So in a way, to let go might be more the side of finding fresh energy, rather than letting go in terms of sort of flopping out, which is often a bit of a sort of a tight sort of defensive strategy, a letting go of whatever element of your experience, the tendency in a time where you've got lots of space and time, letting go of whatever is in your experience that you're sort of guarding against or hiding from something, and facing that and experiencing the energy that comes with that. And in a time when one's busy, slightly letting go of wanting it to be other than it is. So wanting it to be spacious and to have time to do what you want. And that's my experience at the moment. It's like, oh, I want to be able to play chess in the middle of the day again. I want to be able to read those books that I never got around to doing when I had all the time. So in a way, it's quite a different thing, but it's more like the sort of felt experience underneath both is one of resistance. It's one of resisting the way things really are. So although the situations may differ, maybe quite different and very different for lots of different people, the sort of essential issue of this grasping and this need, if we want to transcend an experience of suffering, is the same ultimately. So yeah, maybe I've got time for one more question, I reckon.
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks from Anna and Tracy for your answers. And then quite a good question here from Jack, who's saying that being at home much more and less active, he's trying to reduce the amount he's eating, but finding himself thinking about food a lot. Any advice on that? It sounds like it's quite anxious and feeling around it. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I've been experiencing that definitely. So in our community upstairs, we normally all cook one meal a day. Everyone, like, we have dinner together normally, and someone would cook that. At the moment, because we're there all the time, we're doing lunch as well. And then because people have time, we've had pudding. And then sometimes we have pudding for lunch and dinner. And it's lovely. It's really, really nice. But it's starting to become a bit of a problem. And I do experience that sense of like just feeling sort of heavy and like I don't want to do anything particular. And this sort of sense of wanting to sort of flop out and not quite want to engage with my experience, or that's quite sort of unpleasant. And yes, I sort of started eating more sugar again than I had been before because there's more around. There's a bit of the sort of compulsive thing that comes with that. So, I mean, one thing is obviously just to try and put those things in place. So we've currently, a few of us have entered onto a 14-day no sugar until the 10th of March challenge, or whatever it's sort of, whatever we've ended up calling it, but having a bit of time when we're not eating so much sugar. So putting things like positive things in place, like exercise, like doing certain things about a particular diet that can give you structure from which to work to is helpful, or can be helpful. Although we've all been around whatever the phrase is, around the town or something with that. But the main thing in this context of letting go would be just to look at what the experience is underneath that. Examine what the experience is that's making that uncomfortable for you, and seeing if you can face that, see if you can let go of that, rather than what that turns into in your life in terms of the food or whatever.
Yeah, I think Jack's saying that he's eating less, and therefore he's feeling hungrier, and that's and then thinking about food a lot more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know if I've got a specific. Good. Yeah. I could learn something from you. Yeah. I don't know a specific thing to say in terms of that, but apart from what I said at the end there in terms of looking at the quality underneath that thought that's a concern, or even just the experience of feeling hungry as well. Because actually, if you really examine it, it may not be quite as disastrous as it sort of feels in the moment. So anyway, I better start to wrap up. So I'm just going to say a couple of things, and then we'll do a very short meditation to finish off. So one thing I'd just say is to really encourage you to give to the London Buddhist Centre at this moment in time. So Guillaume will post a link in the chat saying how you can do that. So the London Buddhist Centre sort of is and has always run on a culture of generosity. So we give classes for free. People come along, they give what they can, and that works. It makes the whole thing sort of keep rolling along, and it makes it so that we don't need to be operating in the kind of way that most things do on the high street. We can be a group of people who have something they want to share, are friends with one another, invite people in to come and learn that. And those people, we all, in fact, sort of support that in different ways so it can keep happening. So I really encourage you to feel a part of what we're doing, to feel part of that culture of generosity, even online, even from our separate homes, wherever they are in the world, to give and to join in. So that will really, really help the London Buddhist Centre, particularly at this moment in time. So yeah, again, we'll post a link about that. And I also just really want to encourage you. I mean, there's loads that the London Buddhist Centre is doing online. We've got morning meditations on Zoom. We've got body work, yoga or qigong at 12 on a live stream like this every weekday evening. We've got classes like this. And next week we're doing something totally new. We're doing a whole online course. We've just announced it. It's called 7 Steps to Enlightenment. And it's going to feature a sort of a course of morning meditations led by Surya Gupta, who's the chair of the LBC, and Jana Vatra, who used to be the chair of the LBC before her. So loads of experience teaching you either meditation from scratch or helping you take your meditation practice deeper. And in the evening, these live stream classes are going to go from being 7 till 8 until 7 till 9. So we get double the length. We'll get a long meditation as part of that. And through all of that, you'll be introduced to the life story of the Buddha, and breaking down a sort of systematic way of practicing Buddhism and meditation, all the aspects of how you can practice in your life and how you can practice here sort of on the meditation cushion, to take us step by step along the path to enlightenment. And we'll be hearing the story of the Buddha as that sort of mirrors that. So that's really something we're really excited about, that we've had in the works, and we've been really pleased to sort of launch today. So I'd really encourage you, Guillaume's going to post a link in that, to sign up for that, and you'll just get sent the links that you need and to join in with that. And it will culminate in a full day festival of Buddha Day, so celebrating. It's that moment in the year with the full moon next week, which is the traditional moment to celebrate the enlightenment of the Buddha, out of which all of this, including this little class that we're doing right now, have been born. So I'd really encourage you to join in with that as well. And let's finish, rather on that note, let's finish just by settling back into our meditation posture. And I'll just lead us in a brief meditation, and that will be how we'll leave things tonight. So thank you very much. So just taking a moment just to reconnect with the meditation. Just scanning again through those areas of the body where we're so often just holding on. Letting go of the face that we're holding. Feeling into the way that we're holding our shoulders. As we breathe out, letting the tension just drop away. Noticing if you're clenching at all again in the belly. And if you're bracing in the thighs or the buttocks. and if there's any tightness around the heart. Becoming aware of our whole experience. And just seeing if you can put it down just a little bit more. Okay, so we'll have to leave it there. But really lovely to meditate with you, and I do really encourage you to both to give to the London Book Centre and to keep joining us for these classes, and especially to join for the course next week. So I'd encourage you to just take it easy this evening, as much as you can, give a bit of space, and see you again soon.